Why Canada still sells milk in bags. The glass bottle crisis. Picture Canada in the 1960s. Milkmen delivered glass bottles to doorsteps. But behind this nostalgic image, the dairy industry was hemorrhaging money. Glass bottles were thick, industrial-grade vessels weighing nearly a pound empty. Transportation costs were astronomical due to weight. Breakage rates were catastrophic. A single pothole could shatter dozens of bottles. Insurance premiums skyrocketed. The return system was equally nightmarish. Bottles had to be collected, transported back, sterilized, inspected, and refilled. The dairy industry ran two parallel distribution systems, one delivering full bottles, another retrieving empties. Major companies spent nearly 40% of operational budgets on packaging and logistics alone. Smaller regional dairies went bankrupt. The industry needed an alternative desperately. 1967. DuPont's European solution. DuPont had been observing European dairy trends. In Scandinavia and Eastern Europe, companies used flexible plastic pouches for milk. The technology was elegant. Thin polyethylene film formed into tubes, filled and sealed in continuous motion. Machinery was compact and adjustable. Most importantly, packaging costs were a fraction of glass. In 1967, DuPont brought European equipment to Canada, launching pilots in Ontario and Quebec. The bag seemed strange. Early adopters asked, "How do you pour? Won't it leak?" The solution was the milk pitcher, a plastic container holding the bag securely. You'd slide in the bag, snip a corner, and pour. Simple, cheap, but unfamiliar. Adoption was slow. Canadians had decades of glass bottle habits. Plastic jugs were also emerging. Bags seemed destined to remain a curiosity. Then the government changed everything. The 1970s. Metric conversion changed the game. In 1970, Canada began transitioning to the metric system. For the dairy industry, this was an existential crisis. Every bottle, jug, and carton was calibrated in imperial units, pints, quarts, gallons. Suddenly, all of it was obsolete. For rigid containers, metric conversion meant complete retooling. Manufacturing plants needed redesigned molds, new production lines, recalibrated quality control. Industry analysts estimated $50 million, equivalent to $350 million today. Bag-filling machines used continuous roll film, adjustable by changing seal intervals. A 1-quart bag became 1.33 liters with simple mechanical adjustments, no new molds, no new production lines. The conversion was seamless. 3 1.33-liter bags equaled exactly 4 liters, a perfect metric package. Dairy executives who had been skeptical became believers. Why invest millions retooling rigid containers when bag lines adapted in weeks? Within 2 years, bags went from experimental to industry standard in Ontario and Quebec. Ontario's deposit regulation, the final push. As metric conversion unfolded, Ontario introduced environmental regulations cementing bagged milk's dominance. Provincial law required retailers to collect deposits on milk jugs, typically 10 to 25 cents, but bags were exempt. The rationale? Bags used less plastic, weighed less, and took less landfill space. For consumers, bags meant avoiding deposits entirely. For families buying milk weekly, this saved $10 to $20 annually, meaningful in the inflation-plagued 1970s. For retailers, bags simplified inventory without deposit tracking hassles. The advantage was decisive. Grocery stores featured bagged milk prominently, pricing it below jugs even before deposit fees. Marketing emphasized more milk, less money, no deposit. Within 5 years, bags captured over 70% of Ontario's fluid milk market. Why Western Canada said no? If bags were so advantageous, why didn't they conquer all Canada? Western provinces, BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, had already invested heavily in plastic jug facilities before metric conversion. They'd abandoned glass and built modern jug infrastructure. When metrication arrived, Western companies faced different math. Capital was already invested in jugs. Retooling costs were manageable compared to switching formats entirely. Western consumers had also developed strong jug attachments, viewing rigid, resealable containers as modern and convenient. Newfoundland's geographic isolation meant it followed what was economically viable to ship. The territories needed rigid containers that withstood long-distance transport better than flexible bags. By 1980, the divide was permanent. Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes became bag country. The rest remained jug and carton country, not from preference, but infrastructure lock-in.
Living with bags, the daily ritual. A standard purchase contains 3 1.33-liter pouches totaling 4 liters. You open one bag at a time, keeping others sealed. The milk pitcher is ubiquitous in bag regions. Most homes have multiple for different milk types. You slide the bag into the pitcher and snip the corner. Technique matters. Too small and pouring a slow, too large risks spills. Once opened, there's no cap, no reseal. The pitcher must stay upright. Knock it over, and you've got a mess. This lack of resealing is both weakness and strength. You can't store bags sideways, but you never deal with crusty, stuck caps that disappear into refrigerator depths. Environmental implications are substantial. Each bag contains 75% less plastic than equivalent jugs. Life cycle analyses show bagged milk produces 20 to 40% fewer greenhouse gases due to reduced materials and lighter transport weight. However, recycling remains complicated. Milk bags are soft plastics. Many municipalities don't accept them curbside. In practice, many end up in landfills, despite being technically recyclable. Canada's global companions. Despite its Canadian association, bagged milk thrives internationally. India is the world's largest market, 30% of milk sold in pouches. Economics drove adoption in a developing nation with massive consumption. Israel has perhaps the most culturally embedded tradition. Government price controls on bags, but not alternatives, created lasting differentials, shaping behavior across generations. Researchers discovered wealthier Israelis disproportionately bought cartons despite higher prices. The pattern was so reliable that retail analysts used carton-to-bag ratios to assess neighborhoods' socioeconomic status. South Africa, Argentina, Uruguay, and other nations embraced bags during economic efficiency drives. The UK's Sainsbury's experimented from 2008 to 2015, but discontinued them. British consumers never fully embraced the format's inconveniences. The American experience was brief. DuPont introduced pouches to school cafeterias in 1989. By 1993, 3 million daily pouches served 24 states. Students pierced bags with straws, Capri Sun style. But resistance mounted. Bags were awkward, messy when punctured, and worried parents about spills. The American dairy industry never embraced retail bags, so families couldn't develop familiarity. By 2015, only one Nebraska school district still used them. Creative repurposing, from dairy to disaster relief. Milk Bags Unlimited, a Greater Toronto Area volunteer network, transforms used bags into sleeping mats for homeless individuals and disaster victims. Volunteers clean, cut bags into strips, then loop and weave them onto frames. Each mat requires 400 bags in several hours. The resulting mats last 25 years. They're waterproof, washable, and insulating, providing barriers against cold, damp ground. In disaster zones, they offer portable bedding. Healthcare workers in resource-poor regions have used them as makeshift operating table padding. Crafters weave bags into shopping bags, purses, and totes. Schools use bag collecting as environmental education, teaching resource conservation through tangible projects. Bagged milk has transcended utility to become a cultural marker. For Canadians raised with bags, they represent childhood memories, learning to snip corners without spilling, the satisfying pitcher weight, the distinctive plastic crinkle. The format appears regularly in Canadian media. Comedians reference it in identity routines. TV shows set in Ontario or Quebec feature characters pouring from bags. Online, bagged milk spawns countless memes about Canadian distinctiveness. When Canadians travel abroad, bags become conversation pieces. You drink milk from bags? Is a frequent question. For immigrants to bag regions, learning the system becomes part of cultural integration. First attempts, confusion about missing caps, discovering specialized pitchers. Bagged milk faces new challenges as environmental consciousness rises. On paper, bags should thrive. They use dramatically less plastic than jugs, generate fewer transport emissions, and take less landfill space. Yet, perception problems persist. Many consumers instinctively prefer rigid plastics, not realizing bags have better environmental profiles. Recycling confusion muddies the message. The industry responds with innovation. Some processors experiment with biodegradable, plant-based bags. Others develop retailer take-back programs. Companies test bags with built-in pour spouts, improving user experience. Market share remains stable in bag regions. Younger generations see them as normal, not quirky. Infrastructure optimized for bags creates inertia against change. Western Canada shows no adoption signs after 50 years. Globally, bags expand in developing nations, where cost efficiency drives decisions. As middle classes grow in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, bags often answer their packaging needs. Bagged milk survived through perfect storm circumstances. 1960s economic necessity, 1970s metric conversion, Ontario regulatory incentives, and regional infrastructure locking in different formats. Industrial problem-solving became cultural tradition. The story shows how practical solutions, given the right conditions, embed in daily life. Infrastructure shapes behavior. Regulations influence markets. Regional variations persist for generations. For Canadians in bag regions, this is simply how milk comes. Not weird or quirky, normal. The efficiency, economy, and environmental impact are benefits, but individuals buy bags because that's what they've always done, what their parents did, what works in their kitchens. That's perhaps the most Canadian thing about bagged milk. It's practical, efficient, works well enough, and nobody sees compelling reasons to change it. It's weird, it's wonderful, and it's unmistakably Canadian.